joining us today for this episode of All About PR. I'm your host, Tarunjit Chatan, and we are back with another intriguing conversation for you. If you're tuning in for the first time, in this podcast, we speak to experts from the field of PR and communication from across the world and bring you conversations that matter on the industry. In Season 3, we have introduced a special segment titled Media Shots, where we invite strong and grounded voices from the media industry to join us for a frank conversation on communication. In this episode, we have with us Priyanka Nair, Assistant Editor, Storyboard, Network 18, who will speak to us on transitioning mediums and their rapid evolution in the media. Priyanka has over a decade of experience in the media industry. She spent over 7 years with the Economic Times Brand Equity, India's oldest publication for the adland and marketing community, where she was part of the founding editorial team that developed the digital extension for the product. 3 years ago, she moved to the print side of the business and was the lead writer for the supplement. She is currently with Network 18 and joins them as an assistant editor for Storyboard, where she will be setting up new age news platforms in the A&M space. How exciting! So let's add her on. So welcome, Priyanka. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Tarun. Good morning. Thank you for having me here.
So you've had a very interesting journey. A lot of Corpcom professionals and PR professionals joined the PR industry from the journalism route, but you did the reverse. Can you share a little bit about your journey and how this entire progression happened?
Absolutely. So the move was definitely based on an opportunity that I got and was opportunity driven. And back in college, I did a lot of PR work for college festivals. It just opened up my mind that there's something else out there that I should probably explore. And back then, when I graduated, the media sector was on a bit of a slowdown. So a lot of my seniors sort of mentioned like, hey, you're pretty good at managing people. And there is an industry out there like which is very people driven, and go for it. I honestly didn't know that what that really meant, but I did get an opportunity, and you know which opportunity I'm talking about. A very kind person came to our college, picked up a couple of us, and I remember having the conversation, very candid conversation that, hey, I'm here for the experience, but my heart really lies in journalism. I don't know how you got convinced with that, but yes, I'm glad that happened. And yeah, so that's how my brief 1 year of PR life happened.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that it happened because I believe you got to see a little bit about the other side as well.
Absolutely. I think it sort of built a foundation that I thought I didn't really realize the importance of that foundation. And as I'm growing in this industry, I think every day I look back to that time of my life and understand that, hey, that really helped.
Awesome. I'm so glad it did. But what is the one driving factor that keeps you going towards journalism? Why did you become a journalist?
Right. So, like I mentioned, I wanted to be a journalist when I was in class 4. I know that sounds crazy, but I think that's where I'm coming from. Like I always wanted to be here. I wanted to become a weather reporter. That's a different story.
Really?
But yes, I did, and it looks like the more I see American shows and there are mentions of weather reporters and the way they have their lives, I'm glad I'm here and not a weather reporter. But so I always wanted to do that. So my goal was very clear, but it got defined as I progressed during my college life and also when I took up the PR project, started the job. I understood that, hey, you know what is something that I really like even more deeper? That's advertising. I definitely had that clear in my mind that if I'm going to be a journalist, I want to be a journalist who is slightly different from, the conventional ones. Like I look at advertising, which is a very interesting kind of storytelling, and to write stories about that will be a fun thing to do. So it got defined every step that I took, in my early stage of my career. And I think that really helped. So my PR experience working with agencies back then, I understood that how much I really love this space. So yeah, that's the driving factor.
Absolutely. I think it's wonderful. I think every stage of your career helped you crystallize that entire thing that this
Yes.
is what you want to do, this is where you want to be. But what was it
Yeah.
like when you went and joined your first day in a job as a journalist, especially coming
Yeah.
from the PR industry? What was your first
Yeah.
day like? What were some of the shockers that you had when you walked into the office?
Thankfully, the experience that I had during my PR phase was very kind. Like the people I spoke to, interacted with, collaborated with, they were really kind. But there were people around me, not naming anybody, not specifying anything. It gave me a very different perspective about how journalists are sort of receiving what PR agencies are sort of saying. So
Mm.
it was strange because I was like, hey, how do you actually now talk to your peers who are on the other side? And how do you sort of make that balance that I like be very objective about it and not be like, I know how it feels on the other side. So I'm going to like listen to whatever you're going to tell me. Of course, I'll be respectful, but also be critical when it needs to be addressed. So it was strange, but it was interesting.
I guess interesting is the word for it.
Yes, yeah. That's
Let's
what
go
it
with
is.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's come to the topic. Journalism in itself has also changed a lot in the last 2 decades. And you've had an interesting journey through digital, print, and now back to digital. What
Yeah,
was the most intriguing aspect of your role in each of these mediums?
sure. So when I started off in the digital space, and I think that opened up a very different perspective about what journalism will look like 10 years from then. Don't
Right.
so it's been 11, I'm on my 11th year, and there's so much changed, but I sort of anticipated that these were the changes that would happen, say, in about 10 years. And I'm glad that that happened because the last 10 years has been the most exciting phase for journalists, for the media space as well,
Right.
because there's so much happened. Every 6 months, there's something new happening, right? And in the last 2 years, it has even more narrowed down to the fact that this industry is bound to change, not because of conditions like economy and all of it, but also because of the talent. Because talent is also changing with time. So I think what digital sort of taught me was this solid foundation that if you have to be in this industry for long, these are the skill sets that you need. So you better be prepared now so that 10 years from now, you know what to do and you are not clueless that, hey, how do I capsule 800-word piece in a social media post? One wouldn't have thought about it earlier, say in 2010. I think those are the things that really help me move forward. And I mean, in my last 10 minutes, like print, that is a different ballgame altogether. I think if you're serious about, especially if you're in the features space, and if you're really serious about becoming a better writer, I would suggest please go and try your luck writing for a publication because that's how you actually understand that the value of printed words. Because it's not about the byline, but the art is very different. And how much ever people argue that, hey, you can do the same now on digital, I feel the romance of print media is different and nothing can replace that. So I think that made me realize that if I want to be in this business for, say, about 20 years in this business, you also need to be a fairly good writer. So be a
Absolutely.
better writer with every story is what print sort of taught me. And the balance of both is why I'm here right now because I'm bringing in my current role, both of this. So I think that's how it is.
Absolutely. So you put in a very interesting point that the written word, the beauty of the written word is absolutely different from anything that you can find on digital. However, you are in digital
Yeah.
right now. And at the same time, I think digital is on a faster growth track as compared to
Yeah.
all the other mediums. So will we see you going back to print anytime soon? And second, if so will we see you
Interesting.
going back
Yeah.
to print?
It's too early to say, honestly. And I've realized one thing. I still think that I have a really long way to go in my life, but think that I will never say no to anything. That's something that I've realized because I feel that you never know where life will take you. So I'm not saying I'll
Absolutely.
never go back to print. I will not, because I really enjoyed that space. I mean, I didn't switch to this place because I hated this. I just took this up because it was a better opportunity. That's about it. So yes, you never know. I mean, if there's something interesting, why not?
Why not? Yeah. Second, you touched upon made a very interesting point when you said that you always need to be upskilling and be ready for
Yes.
the media industry as it is not today, but possibly as it would be 10 years from now. So, what are
Yeah.
some of the skill sets that you are working on right now?
So I do a lot of reading about SEO, ORM, and not just for my stories, but I also just generally browse through blogs, look at YouTube tutorials to sort of understand what kind of engagement will bring in excitement on a LinkedIn versus Instagram versus Twitter, where a lot of our TG is. So those are the things definitely, and also design. Personally, I love the idea of design, and visualization is very, very, very important. I think that's something that's a big miss in our side of business, and I've just started on. And print sort of made me understand how important it is to make a story look beautiful. I mean, you want to pick up the
Absolutely.
paper, you want to look at an illustration that blows your mind, you will, right? I mean, it's like scrolling and then you see something attractive and you just, want to stop. So visualization is extremely important. And that's one aspect that I'm learning currently. Like I spend a lot of time designing different things, random things on Canva and seeing that if this works, if this doesn't work, but I just for practice and for fun, that how will it look if I put this, like I said, like a 800 word to an Insta post. So what will it look if I have to put it on a creative? So that's something that I'm learning. And I think as journalists, it's very important that we try to understand how your story will look. Very, very important.
Absolutely. And it's very essential for everybody who is in the mass communication business to know that,
True,
right?
true,
And
true.
there are so many apps that have made it so easy and convenient for all of us.
Yes, it has.
Yeah.
It has.
So 10 years from now, where do you see
Hmm.
digital media? What will digital media look like? What will journalism in digital media look like?
Interesting. I think 10 years is too much to sort of predict.
Okay, so
But
let's say
in,
1 year. Let's say 1 year.
let's say 1 year, I think a lot of content, and I say content is because it's on multiple platforms. And I don't think it is wrong to sort of categorize stories to content. I think everything means the same. Like it's
Right.
just different words. And I feel visualization, like I mentioned earlier, will be very, very important. Even if you're doing like a live, if you're doing a reel, doing shorts, you're doing a graphic for that matter. I'm sure you must have seen some amazing startup publications who are totally dependent on creating newsletters. Honestly, between you and me, we know how much we look at a newsletter, digital newsletter. But there are people who think that newsletter can change the way you pick up the first 10 headlines that will make a difference to your life. And that's interesting, right? I mean, people who still think that a person will go to the inbox, click on
Right.
it, click on a newsletter, scroll through interesting GIFs, interesting videos, interesting graphics, and that's it, you're done reading for your day. I think that's going to change. I feel things that people thought that will never work will work. So a newsletter and an interesting newsletter will definitely work. That's what a lot of new age publications are getting bigger. I think bigger publications are also wanting people like us to think from that lens.
Okay, so what is the one thing that you believe in and that you want to see happen in the next 1 year in digital journalism?
I really think one thing that I really want fellow journalists to do is to slow down. And I'm not saying that because we are dealing with an ongoing pandemic and not from a mental health perspective. But I feel that people and my peers should understand that it's okay to not break news all the time. Not all news is breaking news worthy. And I speak from my industry perspective. It may work differently for different sectors. I feel that piece of information that a person moving from one organization to the other organization is an important piece of information. But what more? That's something that we're also trying to learn and understand that how we can make that sort of piece of information valuable. I think that's what people are looking for. People are not really interested to read I mean, people love to read small pieces of content,
True.
but they want something to take away, right? Something that they would want to tell their peers or family or somebody. So that insight, I think, is lacking, and all of us are working really hard towards it. And I see that change coming in. I'm hoping that that culture will change completely going forward.
Very interesting. You are talking about going to the depth of a story. Why should somebody read it? The why of the story as such.
Yeah.
Whereas there is an increasing massive movement out there, which we call the scroll culture. You're just watching because it is. You're just there because it is. How do you see the two balancing themselves out?
So I think a multi approach is very important. Like I said, sometimes you need to think that I have this story which is extremely, say, fact based, number driven piece. So how do I sort of split into different formats so that even if a person ends up missing a newsletter or a Twitter post or a LinkedIn post, can still see on Instagram via a nice graphic or a reel. So diversifying that is very important. So news, the same news piece can go in different formats, in different look and feel format, and also how do you replug it at the right time. So maybe if you've done a piece say 2 months ago and it's still relevant, how do you actually replug it smartly and not just telling people that you did this like 5 months ago? How do you do that? So the designing aspect of it will sort of make a difference.
Very interesting. I see these are going to be two very interesting and important aspects of journalism that are going to be very important in the next coming year. One, which you keep coming back to, is the visualization of news. And
Yeah,
second,
absolutely.
would possibly be repurposing content.
Repurposing. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So there is one vertical that has actually taken off and has been doing the rounds very often in the, I think, in the last couple of years, which is
Yeah.
branded journalism, right? Or brand
Yeah.
content or native content. It's known by many names, but it seems
Yeah.
to be a bone of contention between the editorial and marketing teams in a lot of publications, whereas
Yeah.
others seem to have accepted it wholeheartedly. I want to know what's your view on it.
I think it's a very cool aspect of a merger between marketing and journalism. However, I think in India, the maturity of it still needs to come in. And I say that because people have not still warmed up to the idea of paid content. Like you
Right.
also often see that on Instagram or on any other platform where influencers are sort of doing this. I'm just giving an example. So an influencer may be partnering with a brand or for a cause, but there will be thousands of people saying that, hey, but you're doing it for money. But people are not understanding that it is a business at the end of the day. You're
Hmm.
trying to make that piece of content which is user friendly, which gives some value addition to your life. It's
Hmm.
just that I'm getting paid for it isn't a bad thing.
It's not a bad
So,
thing.
exactly. So I think people have still not warmed up to the idea of how can a publication sort of have like a partnership which says branded content. I mean, there's nothing wrong, right? It's the way you do your business. It's just that people like, oh, but publications are supposed to just say the truth. Of course, that's the key, but also there is an aspect of business, right? Which people have still not understood. So I think it's a great opportunity out there, and it can be done in different ways where people warm up to it, but it's still in an early stage here, I think.
I do want to know what is that one innovation you think will happen in media per se, irrespective of the medium or format it is in. Is there an overarching change that you see happening in the industry in the next 1 year?
I think integration is something that I see happening in the coming months and the coming year. And I say that is because earlier on, and I'm talking about pre pandemic, where everybody worked in silos. And even from a distribution point of view, it made sense for companies to integrate products. It didn't happen. But now you see that happening. And I think that's the big change because media companies have realized that there is so much that one can do if you can integrate talent, integrate distribution channel. It's not that they didn't know, but the power of that happened when world became digital. I think that's big thing that will come across.
So let's come to the PR industry, your interaction with the PR industry per se. What has been like? And let's say which medium has been the easiest to deal with when it comes to PR pitches?
So I'm seeing some positive change on in the other side of the business, PR side of the business, and I sort of observed this a couple of days ago after a conversation I had with a PR acquaintance. And I think pitches have become sharper and it has become interesting that people know that what you write, where you write, and how you want to sort of write. So that's a positive change that I've seen in the at least last 6, 7 months. However, what I still see, and I don't really blame anybody here, and I think it comes totally out of client pressures, and the conversation has to be addressed to the clients and not really the agencies, because I do understand that this immense pressure that comes where expectations from the clients is insane, because some people even tell me that they have a nervous breakdown because they are not able to sort of crack which they know is absolutely crap, but they have to do it for the sake of business. So I think from a positive lens, a lot of agencies are understanding that gone are the days where we could flood a journalist's inbox time and again, catch their attention, which is great, makes our inbox clean and clear. But what is happening is that, because of this pressure, sometimes you really feel bad to not even respond. Now, I probably say blame it on pandemic, but I've become more empathetic because I think everybody is struggling out there. So
Right.
even if it is not of my interest, I don't, I mean, if the person is pushing really hard, I just say, I'm sorry, like I can't do this. I mean, I think that's the least I can do for somebody like them. That's one aspect. The other aspect, I think, which sort of needs serious agencies should consider changing is that please do your homework. I mean, you are in the PR industry, which means that you should be reading.
Absolutely.
I mean, you should be the person that should be the most well read person in the system. Giving a very simple example, this one senior executive called blah, blah, blah. And this was my previous stint. Pitch was great, conversation was great. And we're like, oh, I read your pieces. Okay, cool, if you do. Ending the conversation telling me, please give me your email ID, which I wouldn't have refused to give. But I was like, if you read my pieces, how is it you missed my email ID? My
Right.
byline is my email ID. So please don't do that. You think we are not smart? Like, excuse me, we are much smarter in a lot of aspects. We really pick the clues and connect the dots. So please don't
Hmm.
do that. I mean, it's not difficult to track news, right? I mean,
Yeah.
why is Google Alerts as a tool given to you? I
Hmm.
use Google Alerts to track my own stories. Sometimes it's not that I miss my stories, but how difficult is it to actually type in keywords? I understand sometimes SEOs can be crazy. You may not even end up spotting it. Go to the website, put keywords, you will find it. You cannot come
Absolutely.
back to me and say, please send me the links. Am I supposed to do your tracking work? Because I honestly know that tracking is another aspect of the PR services that happens. So please don't do that. Like,
Absolutely. I mean, there's no point to create such an obvious bluff. It's
yeah,
disrespectful. I don't think it should be done. If you're not reading it, you haven't had the time to read it. It's very all right. I mean, it's very okay to actually mention it to the journalist saying, I love the publication. I've read a few pieces, but I've not had the time to read this particular piece, which is fine. I think that will earn more respect than actually backfire on you. But when it comes to
exactly.
PR pitches, right, what are
Yeah,
your top three rules? What would be your top
yeah.
three insights that you would want to share with the PR industry?
Sure. I think we keep getting requests, right? For interactions, for relationship building, conversations. Firstly, if you come with a pitch that, hey, it's a relationship building conversation, at the end of the conversation, don't come back to me saying that, can we pick up something as a story? As in, like, the purpose of this was different, right? So
Right.
that's one aspect that I really think that people should understand. The second aspect is that when people send in pitches, they send 15 questions saying that these are the 15 questions that he'll answer. So why don't you send me the answers as well? I mean, that's something that I feel that needs a change. The other aspect is, again, coming back to the thing, you should know the publication that I am working with. Don't address me as male colleague that I had 10 years ago. Like, it's that simple as that. I have had, I mean, Tarun, I know that we had this conversation several times. Okay, my name is quite specific to my gender, so there's no problem mixing up that. So it's very basic, right? And
Right.
also, one big thing, and it's a very basic thing, please clean your media list. Everything is on the internet. Gone are the days where you have to actually pick up the phone and call people. You still do it. I still do get calls recently when I moved to the new place. Please, can you help me out with your email ID? I understand. Now I do because I'm in a new place. I'm supposed to give out my email ID and I've put it on the internet as well. You can miss it. I respect that. I will give it to you. But don't call me. You have a conversation and you ask me for an email ID of a publication that I've worked 10 years ago. Like media list, it's not difficult to clean up. Sometimes I feel that I can clear the media list and send it back. And I'm like, oh no.
No,
That's too much.
absolutely. With so many, Facebook groups, WhatsApp groups, and in fact, professional services now that exist, which give us these lists and clean them up for us, I think it's ridiculous that you would not be able to get one of them right. And if that is happening on a repeated basis, hey guys, listen up. Please do clean up your media lists. Very essential, very basic for all of us. Now, I do want to understand, see, there's a lot of movement happening on both sides. One advice that you would give PR professionals wanting to switch to journalism?
Yeah. Interesting. So I think go for it. I think it will open up your mind very differently. You will see some unexpected things. You may think that it's very glorious here, but it's not. You think that a lot of journalists just pick up releases, put together 5 releases and make a story. No, there's a lot of hard work, a lot of sleepless nights to put together stories, deadlines, chase a story. It's crazy. So if you're somebody, PR is a business which will want you to love people. Here, it's a very different thing. You don't want to love people if you want to come to journalism. There are various aspects to it. So keep that in mind. But I think a PR person moving to journalism will be really, really interesting. And I think people should do it for a different thrill. I think if somebody out there really is thinking of doing it, I feel just do it.
Absolutely. So tell me something. When a person from, let's say, PR moves into journalism, do they become unemployable in the PR industry back again? Do you think they would switch back?
I don't think anybody will be in that spot. To be honest, I think gone are the days where you need XYZ to become a journalist, you need ABC to become a PR person. I feel with experience and if with the right skill set, you can become whatever you want. Like I've heard stories about doctors joining ad agencies, psychologists joining ad agencies to understand consumer behavior. So anybody can become anything. It's an art of storytelling. If you can crack it, nothing like it. So go for it.
Absolutely. So while the switch from PR to journalism is pretty rare, but of late, a lot of journalists have been switching over to PR.
Yes.
It's been an interesting journey, I would say, for them as well as for the rest of us who are there in the PR industry, who see them on the other side now. What would your advice be to journalists wanting to switch to PR?
I think do it if you really think you want a change in career graph. Okay, don't do it because it pays you better. And it's very practical, right? I mean, you move careers because you want to be at a better financial level. So you do it. It's very practical and you should. Thought that PR will give me X package. I should go for it. Don't do it. If you can't do that job well, what will you do with that package? You will be irrelevant to that job.
Right.
So do it if you think that you can add value to that industry. Don't do it. And I'm saying it may sound very idealistic, but that's one of the reasons that I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying no to anything at this point. And I feel that is when people get flustered and they don't enjoy their jobs. And then conversations become crazy and you're like, oh, it's a 9 to 5. Don't make a 9 to 5 job. You can do a lot of interesting stuff on the other side.
Absolutely. That's very, very sane advice. But we're running out of time. Thank you so much for joining us today. The fact that you report on advertising and marketing media, you are in digital media that is actually more fast paced as compared to all the other mediums. And I think in the last couple of years, you guys have stressed a lot about writing on mental health, mental wellness,
Yes.
work-life balance.
Yes.
I want to know from you, does that really happen in your industry? Or is it just for reporting on stories?
No, I'll be honest. I cannot say about the industry in general. Okay.
Right.
And it's a slow process. Like even when we write about it, we discuss it offline as well. So if there is a certain pressure and if you're overwhelmed on a particular day, on a particular story, thankfully, I've been blessed to have people who I can just go and tell them that I can't do this. And that's been encouraged in the team. We're not 100% there, but we've at least started accepting the fact that this needs to be addressed. We may fail multiple times, but at least we're attempting.
That's brilliant. So, last question. What would your life advice be for professionals in mass communication?
Friendly advice would be that, hey, absolutely be sure that what you're getting into. Just don't do it for experiment's sake. And I think this is a conversation happening across industries. Be specific about our industry. Define your goals. Very important. Experimentation is great. You can switch to A to B to C aspects of the industry, but have a very clear goal, because that's something that we have been not seeing right now, hiring new talent for the team and all of it, because people are still not convinced that this is where I want to be. This is what, will it be okay? Don't think about money aspect. Money aspect will definitely come in the right time and at the right stage of your career. Just be patient. So yeah, be patient, have a clear goal, and go for it.
Absolutely. That's very sane advice again. Thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Tarun, for having me. It was lovely chatting with you.
So that was Priyanka Nair speaking to us about the changing media mediums and what to expect. Thank you for joining us for this episode. We will see you soon with another intriguing conversation from the world of PR and communication.